Hello and welcome. This is going to be a Virgo season reading for all signs. Then I'm going to finish up Dear Pisces next 48 since I did not get to that one. I apologize to my Piscean friends. And then I'm thinking to do a Virgo season reading for all signs plus the next 48. Either way, I've been noticing some interesting things in the astrology, and since I like to mix tarot astrology, and I know many of you like to hear the mixture of the two, I've made my little notes here on an old envelope about where we are with the planets. Now, I'm still learning a little bit more in terms of aspects, but I do know that we have some very strange and powerful aspects going on between Saturn and Pluto right now that will lighten up a little bit, but it's actually going to Pluto and Saturn are going to come very, very close together to each other, and I believe it is September 28th that they're going to be the closest to each other that they will have been, I want to say all year, and I think it's actually a couple of years, but I'll have to look into it. You're welcome to look into it too. Either way, typically when Saturn and Pluto interact in the kind of aspects that we have, we see a lot of shakeups, a lot of tower moments. In fact, like the Twin Towers 9/11 thing happened about that time, and it's no coincidence that, of course, it's in September this is happening. A lot of these transits happen every year, but there's just slight differences. But because Pluto is one of the most outer well, I don't even know if they're calling it a planet anymore. I'm going to call it a planet because in astrology it's still considered a planet. But it's one of the outermost planets, and so even though it actually moves in a similar way as the closer planets because it's smaller, it tends to be more of an overall effect rather than like a direct effect. It tends to affect the overall collective rather than like just like minor things as where Mars or Venus might have a more powerful effect because it's closer to us. And Saturn being one of the main giants is also it's a lot slower, and so we don't typically see a lot of like bigger effects. But Saturn is also the purveyor of karma, and with it being an aspect to Pluto and both of them being in retrograde, we have this interesting effect. Typically, Saturn in direct is, it actually brings a lot of limitations, and it's also that reap what you sow sort of energy. Now in retrograde, it actually lightens up a little bit on some of the limitations, but it increases the impact and manifestation of karma. So we're seeing, like, if we've been in a fairly good mindset, we haven't been doing too much stinking thinking, and we've been, just generally kind and of the heart, that there are a lot of better benefits coming through, or some of these harsher aspects are not kicking us in the butt is hard. But for those individuals who have been very selfish in a negative way, or who have been taking advantage of others, or who have been just not being very kind people, are really getting kicked in the patootie with karma right now, and you might be noticing that. And with Pluto in there, it actually provides an aspect of kind of revealing hidden enemies in there, and we're going to see that even more because today we are on the cusp between Leo and Virgo, hence why I decided to do the Virgo season readings. And Virgo in particular is ruled by Vesta, who is both the virgin and the prostitute. So we're going to be seeing a really big dichotomy on that, and because Saturn and Pluto are in this interesting sort of dance with each other, where you might even notice some people around you that you thought were of the virgin aspect, very, very innocent, or at least like if they may have had some not so pretty aspects about their character, you might have reasoned away, oh, they've been through a hard time in life, or they've had this and that. Well, if that's the truth, then that's the truth, and that's what will persist. But if the truth is that really they've been stuck in a victim mindset and or manipulating us, or have ulterior motives, Pluto is revealing those, and they're going to be heightened. So even if we have some codependent aspects that cause us to try to look past that, or to reason that, well, I'm not perfect and things like that, we actually are going to be seeing that that's not always the case. And there are times when it is good to separate ourselves from people who are being very toxic, and to not use our own character flaws as a reason to allow ourselves to continue on in toxic dynamics. And let's see, Pluto is going to be retrograde, and it's in, here's a funny thing. So Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, and I thought there was another one. Okay, so Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter are all retrograde in Capricorn. Now, with Saturn in Capricorn, that's actually exalted because Saturn rules Capricorn. And in the tarot deck, the Capricorn is typically most represented in the major arcana by the Devil card, which is both good and bad. Like, we're humans, so we have both dark and light sides, and even the devil card can actually look at where we have deeper connections than we typically do. But it also is that essence of us that tends to get into codependent and toxic relationships that are not good for us, but we tend to stay in them because we are, if we haven't healed our childhood wounds and things like that, we tend to almost, we make ourselves believe that we are safer in dynamics that feel much more like how it was when we grew up, even if it's not actually safer, even if it causes us a great deal of pain. For we have kind of this like hidden compartmentalized feeling that we need to save it and stay in it, and we our fears of abandonment get heightened, or our fears of self-worth get heightened. And with 3 planets all in Capricorn in that place, it also really heightens the fatherhood issues. It heightens governmental issues. It heightens, and especially with Pluto in play and in Capricorn, it really takes a look at where are we being dictators and not in a good way, and how are we being leaders in good ways, and what sort of dynamics do we have ourselves in that we have been equivocating that we're trapped in that we're really not. And it's a lot of shadow work coming out, and so we're probably going to see a lot more of that. And with election season coming on, it's probably going to be pretty intense. Although these are, I'm not an expert in any of this. This is going off of what I do know and what I am intuiting. So please do your own research on it too. And if you sense something different, please feel free to call it out. Now, amongst having all of that stuff going on, we also have Neptune retrograde in Pisces. Actually, we have 6 planets in retrograde, and we're about to have Mars go retrograde also in September. We will have, so that's 7 planets that will all be in retrograde. And the irony is, of all the planets that are not in retrograde and won't be for another month or so, it's Mercury, which usually is the one that causes the shakeups. Mercury in retrograde. But Mercury right now is in Leo, and it's going to head into Virgo fairly soon. And so it's actually causing us to speak up more about this stuff going on, and to stand in our personal power. In fact, if with the aspects of so much that we have going on with retrograde and in Capricorn, we're probably going to see a lot of waves of, I want to say breakups, but not just like relationship stuff, like organizational stuff, because Capricorn in the 10th house is a lot to do with government and organization, and Capricorn is the social architect. And so we're going to see a lot of those things start to break down, and like we need that as part of the evolution, and we need to be able to see what sort of things that we need to change, which is being affected by Neptune being retrograde in Pisces and Uranus being retrograde, Uranus being retrograde in Taurus, which means like in a house, Taurus would be the closet where we keep a lot of the material stuff. And it also has to do with how we make money, how we view materialism and things like that. So that's like affecting greater economic stuff as well as the small stuff. Taurus being ruled by Venus also means that it's taking a look at where and how we love, and how that plays a part in, how do we say it? Like how materialism plays a part in our relationships, whether helpful or hurtful or things like that. And we have Venus in Cancer, which is going to change over on September 16th, going into Venus in Leo. But right now with Venus in Cancer, while we have Uranus in Pisces and Neptune in Pisces and Uranus in Taurus, is highlighting issues of the home in particular. So even though a lot of these planets are affecting the wider sense of things, they're actually zeroing in on the home, and especially when it comes to love issues and anything to do with the mother, or how we view feminine aspects of ourselves, how we hide away on things, like with a crab, like how we might sidestep to try to get in and out of things. And it's going to prevent a lot of that, and the parts that cannot be prevented are going to be highlighted, especially in the public view. So things that we might have previously found we could hide from public view are no longer going to be hidden. And that's being heightened even more by Mars in Aries, which is also exalted. And up until we hit retrograde, with Mercury being in Leo, we very much have this it's like war kind of thing going on, especially in our own mind, between our minds and our hearts, and also between those around us. Like, if you have a lot of insecurities, they're going to be heightened, and you're probably going to be kind of war party building, or you might see somebody else that's kind of doing that, like trying to get, this person's on my side, or I'm going to try to set somebody up to, like with the Pluto aspect, it's very much like I want to reveal where I have power and where I have territory, but because Pluto is in retrograde, it's actually kind of revealing the opposite, where when we try to take power or wrestle it from others, or show it off, we're actually being shown where we are powerless, and where we do not have control, and where others actually have power over us, even if they're not trying, or even if we were convinced that we had some sort of power over that. And with we have the North Node in Gemini, which is the light side of the moon, which is also very much highlighting the dichotomy. And I find it almost amusing that we have that set up, and we're going into the sun in Virgo and so many elements of Virgo, because that's really going to highlight, like, Gemini is the dining room, and it has to do with siblings and small family stuff, and intellect and learning and discovering things. And to have that mixed in there with the virgin and prostitute dichotomy of Virgo, while we're still kind of leaping away from all of this, like, personal power stuff in Leo, while being thwarted by the Pluto in retrograde and Saturn in retrograde, all being expanded on by Jupiter in retrograde, which is going to, I kind of want to say, like, mark your calendars for September. I want to say like mid-September, but definitely coming up to September 28th, because that's when Jupiter goes direct, and it'll stay in Capricorn. And that is very much likely when we're going to start to see kind of this yo-yo effect, because when Jupiter is direct, things expand, and especially spiritually. And with Uranus is also the great change maker and the great awakener. So we're going to probably see a lot of things come to light that we weren't expecting to, a lot of unexpected changes, and we're going to be seeing, if there's ways that we've been comfortable, whether they're healthy or not, they're going to get shaken up, at least for us to take a look at and decide, is this still the direction I want to go? Is this the person I want to be? Are these the people that I want to be with? And is this the way that I want to vote? Is this the way that I want to work? Is this the kind of family dynamic that I want to have? And that's going to keep going until January 14th of next year. So that's going to keep shaking things up as the other planets go in. And with Mars going into retrograde on November 10th, we're going to see a lot of that same sort of, like, it's going to make it so it stays in Aries extra long, where it's exalted, but it's like a lot of temper tantrums, a lot of, like, trying to stand up and have stability, but things keep falling apart. And that's going to happen especially if what you have right now is built on a false foundation. So there's a lot of towers coming in, and a lot of spaces where, if you've been pretending to be an angel while actually manipulating or using people or making excuses for not paying debts that are owed. Saturn in particular is a big one about paying your debts, and the more you do that, the worse other areas are going to be affected if you don't do that. So it's a really good time to make sure that you are working on being honorable, having good integrity, paying any debts that are owed, you know, making amends with anybody that has been hurt, whether intentionally or accidentally, because otherwise it's really going to pay the price. And Chiron also, which is the wounded healer, and an asteroid aspect, is also in Aries and also retrograde, which is bringing us back to how are we being authentic and how are we not. And that's going to stay there until December 15th. So like all of this stuff is layered on what are we focusing on and how are we being authentic, and a mixture of that, you know, what kind of karma are we creating. Anyways, that's my take on it for right now. I'm going to attempt to do more videos like this. If you enjoyed this kind of aspect of what's coming up in each sign's season, please let me know and I'll do some more of them. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next video.